Welcome to the space between, where we explore conversations at the edge of change. The space between ethics and ambition, pressure and kindness, and profit and purpose. No scripts, just the truth, in whatever form it shows up.
In this episode, I was joined by Maggie Watts, a pancreatic cancer campaigner who's turned personal loss into national awareness, pushing for a fighting chance for people facing one of the deadliest cancers. Maggie's without doubt one of the most inspirational individuals I've ever had the pleasure of working with. Joining Maggie, I was delighted to welcome Ella Bookham, Philanthropy Manager at Compassion UK, who shared valuable insight on inclusion, privilege, and how kindness doesn't need to be seen as a weakness in business. This isn't a polished story, it's raw, real, and grounded in lived experience. Tell us what you do and why it matters to you, really.
So I'm a virtual assistant, and that matters to me because obviously I want to deliver a good service to my clients. Big part of my life is pancreatic cancer advocacy, and that matters to me really because I've been affected by it, having lost my husband to it, and I knew nothing about it before his diagnosis. But upon his diagnosis, I quickly realised that actually there's very little hope for people diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And there's very little awareness out there about the symptoms, which is the area that I really particularly focus on, because I feel that if we'd have known the symptoms when Kev first started getting ill, potentially he could have been one of the lucky ones that survived pancreatic cancer. Because it took so long to get his diagnosis, he was borderline inoperable at that point. And so I always think to myself, if I'd have known the symptoms, could we have got him diagnosed earlier? Could we have been one of the lucky ones? So now I focus on trying to get awareness, particularly of the symptoms out there, in the hope that other people might get that chance that Kev didn't get.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, for me, Maggie, I know your journey a little bit, and to be honest, it's pretty inspirational what you've done, and I think that's it. I think I think raising that awareness and the work you've done over the last 10 years or so is incredible, really. So yeah, really inspirational story, to be honest. Yeah, really.
Thank you, Pete. I appreciate that. I don't think I see it as inspirational. I see it more as it's just got to be done, and nobody's doing it. So, and people don't survive to do it. So it's down to people like us to try and lobby and have a voice for people that are going to be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the future and don't know that yet.
Yeah,
which could be any of us.
What's happened? Because I know obviously I know you had your appearance on was it Good Morning? Lorraine. Yeah. What's like? How has it progressed over those 10 years? Like, has anything changed? What's the latest?
I think there has been some change, but it's small change. So just to sort of set the scene for people that don't know, it's 10 years ago that we started the campaign to get 100,000 signatures on a petition to get a parliamentary debate to try and create some awareness, because there's very little research funding. Then it was about 1%, it's about 3% now. So that shows you this shift in the change. It's still not enough really to make a difference, but it is moving in the right direction. Survival rates have slightly improved, but again, very, very low survival rates. About 20% will survive 1 year. I think it's about 10% now that will survive 5 years, and it's only about 1% that will survive 10 years. So, if you get it, the odds are stacked against you, which is why I focus on the symptoms, because if you get caught early and you can get surgery, then you stand a chance of surviving, but only about 10% of people get the surgery. So there's been a slight improvement in funding, and there's been a slight improvement in survival rates, but nowhere near enough. And when we were campaigning 10 years ago, there was hardly any literature out there. I remember being in a GP surgery myself, and there was a cancer research stand, and it had every cancer on but pancreatic. And, of course, we followed up and we wrote and said, why not? We didn't have a leaflet at the time, but I think there's more awareness, Pete, but there's more to be done. And that campaign took a lot of time and effort. I feel like I've got another campaign in me that's brewing. So I think, watch this space. I think we've got another one coming. What form it takes yet, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think we've got another one on the agenda.
Yeah, bravo. Good for you.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And Ella, over to you.
Yeah, me and Maggie have
met virtually before, actually, and I heard her story, and I think we kind of agreed that our common ground was maybe people, because the survival rate was low, people kind of can't handle it, and it's hard to comprehend, and so maybe less people are talking about it, or you know, when you feel overwhelmed, you don't do anything. And we were kind of comparing, just because I work for Compassion, which is a poverty charity, and I think sometimes with that, especially international poverty, there's a similarity of it's really hard, and so people want to look the other way, maybe without even thinking about it. But also Maggie just really inspired me, just like the power of storytelling. So just telling her story and bringing the humanity to the story is probably why she was successful. And that's what all kind of fundraisers or advocates are trying to do, and that's the key. So it was lovely to meet you, and we tried to help each other.
Likewise, Ella. It was interesting to hear your story too, and the fantastic work that you do. So thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah,
I think you make an interesting point there, Ella, because when Maggie tells her story there, it's like because it's really like human on a real human level that Maggie's experience, you can really feel that.
Yeah.
I think every time you talk about it, Maggie, when we spoke about it in the past, it's like almost like the room stops and everyone just really
Absolutely
listens intently. It's quite you probably don't realise it, but yeah. Well, and I think that's because of the experience. So go on.
Maggie and I had a conversation yesterday. I think it's the first time I'd actually heard Maggie's story, because I know that you've worked with her for a long time, Pete and Rich and everybody else, but I haven't. And I would say exactly that. It was just really moving, and you can really be empathetic because you're so clear in the story. Sorry, that's my dog. You're really clear in the story and what you wanted to achieve and how you achieved it, but just everybody around you, the strength that you had to just bring everybody together and speak on it in such a hard time in your own life. I mean, it's incredible, but it's really, really important because of that awareness. It's that awareness that everybody needs in their lives to be able to look out for. And I bet you've saved a lot of people without knowing it, Maggie. And even though these percentages look really, really small, there might be more people that have heard this information that's really helped them. And I think that's incredible.
I hope so, and that is one of the main aims. And I do actually know of 2 people that went to get checked out early on the back of learning about the symptoms, who had significant, had pancreatic cancer, basically.
That's amazing.
So it does work, and yes, it was my name on the petition that got the 100,000 signatures, but it was a huge team of people that got us there. And as you just mentioned there, Fawn, like bringing people along, and Ella, we talked about that as well in terms of, because I think people, of course, everybody that's been affected is going to want to come along because they've got that passion, because they know, understand. But I think also when you tell your personal story, which I was a little bit loath to do to start with, because I didn't understand, I didn't want people to think, oh, it's all about me sort of thing. But what I realized is people do then put themselves in almost in that frame of mind of, what if this happened to me? I'd like to know these symptoms just in case, or, and so it's helpful to share your story, how it unraveled, what happened, because I knew nothing about pancreatic cancer beforehand. And then hope people take it away. And it just sits with them, and it's there at the back of the mind if they ever got any of those niggly symptoms, that they go and get checked out and hopefully get caught early. So thank you for that, Fawn.
What kind of support have you seen from business, Maggie? And when you've been obviously working in businesses previously, what kind of support have you seen?
Do people are really, really kind and supportive. And I know that's the thing that we all love here, talking about kindness and collaboration. And it's a big part of what we're all about, isn't it? And what Brownlee Kale's all about. And so I found on in the majority, people are really kind and helpful and want to help in various forms, either sharing information, making a donation, help, allowing you to go into businesses. In November, I quite often go into businesses and speak about it to share the information. So they'll ask their team if they're interested. My local council have supported it massively in November in Awareness Month. They've lit buildings purple. They've let me go talk to their staff about it. And I think, again, you just need to ask if you can do something, because people don't always think to say, oh yes, come and do that, or well, that will be helpful. But if you ask and you share the information, why would you not want to help somebody with a campaign? Because it is, I have to say, I support all cancers, but I particularly go on the pancreatic cancer route because I've been personally affected, and because it's such a dire cancer to get. There is a graph out there which shows you over 40 years how all the main cancers have improved in survival rates, and all of the lines go like that, except for pancreatic cancer, which flatlines across the bottom. And so another part of my story is Kev's mum, my husband's mum, died of pancreatic cancer in 1969, and she was 27. She had 3 young children left behind. Kev, my husband, was the eldest at 8. He died in 2009, so there were exactly 40 years between the 2 deaths, and yet the medics could offer him no better a chance of survival in 2009 than they could his mum in 1969. So that, to me, is not right. How can it be?
Yeah, everything else was improved.
Yes. Yeah. If you think about 40 years, even about, technology,
everything,
phones, everything, how dramatic the change has been. Yeah. How could there not have been an improvement in survival rates in pancreatic cancer?
And it's the why. Why is research not, if they're getting so much better in all the other types of cancer, why then isn't there more of a focus on the things that aren't getting better, the ones that are more difficult? Why are we not focusing on the ones that haven't changed?
I think that comes back to what Ella alluded to earlier in the conversation. It falls in the too difficult camp, and therefore it's easy to ignore it. Because I did write to some NHS body when we were campaigning to say, why don't you do a TV campaign on pancreatic cancer, because you do one on lung and you do one on bowel. And the response was exactly that. The symptoms are vague. We haven't got definite symptoms we can pinpoint. And I get that. They've got to be very careful. You don't want to be scaring everybody that's got a bit of indigestion into thinking they've got pancreatic cancer. But to me, I'd rather have been scared that it was pancreatic cancer to find out it was something less sinister than the other way around. You know. So, but it is a bit of a catch-22. And you have to be realistic about the money that's available out there, etc. And which is why I think it's very important for people like me to just share their voice and share their experience.
Yeah, absolutely, Maggie. Do you think that? I mean, I think obviously because it's your, obviously, listen, you've been personally affected, so you're campaigning for pancreatic cancer. In terms of like businesses, and feel free everyone to chip in, but I mean this is a sweeping statement, so tell me if I'm wrong, but do you think that it's hard for businesses to include the marginalised in their success, or do you feel businesses are doing enough? Why are businesses not, if that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's just competition out there, isn't there, in terms of who do businesses support? I guess they're inundated with requests for support. I'm sure you experienced that, Ella, in Compassion. That would be my take on it. And I think, so my mentality when we were campaigning was just keep asking. You'll get no's, but just keep going, because you'll get yeses as well. And then you can build on that. And I learned from the petition that in the very early days, nobody really wanted to sign up to it. Well, not that they didn't want to sign up, but they weren't interested because they'd never been affected. And you tend to think, oh, it's not going to happen to me. It's going to happen. It happens to other people, but it's not going to happen to me. But when it got momentum, and certainly when celebrities got involved with it, then everybody wanted to get involved. So I guess it is about building momentum and just having a compelling argument. And I don't think there's anything more compelling than, it can happen to any of us.
Yeah.
as in any cancer, I guess, obviously, but it can happen to any of us, and you would want there to be some improvement in the situation if you were to, or I were to be diagnosed with it. So, but I'm sure you can speak to that far greater than I, Ella, because I guess you engage with lots of businesses.
Yeah, some of our biggest donors are businesses, but I also had a strategy this year of trying to get more involved with corporate responsibility, and it was really hard, and I didn't get mass success. I mean there's probably just massive pressure, to make profits, and then probably that's why we're here, and rising economic pressure across the globe. It might also be just human nature is quite like, I will do that if I get something out of it. So I think humans are quite like, I will in exchange, or if I do this for you, what will you do for me, which is just quite human. So I think maybe a lot of businesses are looking at maybe corporate responsibility in terms of what's trendy or what's popular or what will get more consumers or what will attract more customers with shared values, and that makes sense. So maybe it's a kind of self-preservation thing. So but yeah, I would challenge it, businesses to I think like we all benefit from like globalization. So we live in a world where there, especially in the West, there has been financial gains over the last century from globalization. So why not try and give back if you can. To some people benefit a lot less, like in the global South, where the dominance of extreme poverty is in the global South. So I would encourage businesses just to be kind, like for the sake of it, rather than for what can we get in exchange. I guess that's a challenge to kind of culture.
I think you raised something's like resonated in there, what you said about CSR, corporate social responsibility, like especially in construction. I think there's the big buzz around, right, well, listen, this is what we're gonna, but is it a tick box exercise, or are we actually living and breathing that? And I think, and listen, I think I can't speak for lots of industries, but you see in the construction industry, it's a very capitalist world. Margins are really tight, and it's like, and there's a winner and a loser. So what you've got is especially the private sector, you've got a private customer who's spending money, and they appoint a main contractor, and then basically the main contractor's got to deliver within that price. If they don't deliver within that price, then they've got liquidated damages, and then they're going to be losing money. So I think it's, who knows? People want to be kind. Surely that's human nature. But I just think particularly in construction, it's broken, because there's always a winner and there's always a loser. And actually, until that fundamentally changes, I think that's the challenge. I don't know what you think, Fawn. Obviously, you've had a bit of experience. I don't know if you see that like I see it.
It's hard to say, because I think that if different cultures are different cultures within business, within people, everyone has their own values, don't they? And then you put yourself into a company, and yes, you share some values, but they might not all align completely. But I think to be kind, just genuinely be kind. I understand, and that's why I find it difficult with the corporate world, because I know margins are tight. I get that, but even I assume, Ella, you would say to a corporate company, regardless of what you're asking them, what you're telling them, you would say any donation would be fine. There's not, just because it's a corporate company, you're not asking the world of them. Anything, any donation, to be kind, without anything else attached. Surely there's something. If these companies are able to put out these, contracts, etc., is there nothing in the pot? is there literally nothing to be kind? It just begs the question. Ella's not asking for £1 million.
It's not always monetary either, is it? Because, you know, in terms of my ask,
No.
I particularly do steer away from fundraising, because going back in a personal circumstance, you're going back to the same people over and over, and you don't want to become that burden on them, because of course people naturally want to support you. So I've kind of steered away from the fundraising and done more of the awareness. And so for me, it's not a financial ask anyway. So, you know, I think companies could,
but then it's time,
for example, choose a charity a month to highlight on their website and just make people aware. That costs nothing to do something like that, but it could benefit the charity financially further down the line if somebody picks up on that and wants to then go and help that charity.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think maybe some people are put off because they are worried about how much of a cost it is. But any amount makes a difference. And I think even saying that they've supported, not how much, but just saying that you've supported a charity generosity like spreads generosity. So I think when you tell a story of that you support this charity, other people like, oh, I want to be like that, or if they see an impact story on the website, oh, I want to do that, I want to be part of that. So I think obviously we want to be humble, but even just saying, oh, I care about this and this means a lot to me, that spreads that culture as well. So yeah, anything, take it.
It's like what you've just said, Mike. You know, like you know, your story is very personal to you. So you know, like, wow, and like, you know, you listen to it, you think, right, great, I want to support this, but you can feel it. You meet it, it's real, and you've lived it. That's the thing, you know. Do you think? Just got me thinking. When we're talking about, like, maybe it's cultural, you know, because I think maybe it's not about money. I mean, like, you know, if you're living in a say from business, I think this segues into probably like why, you know, is kindness seen as a weakness in leadership? Yeah, because I think if you're living in this world where there's always a winner and loser, and that's coming right from the top, then that kindness, that openness, that transparency, that empathy isn't driven through your business, then actually then why does anyone really care about anything? Everyone's just firefighting, trying to like survive. I see that quite a lot in business. So I just wonder what, you know, I wonder whether, you know, I wonder in the capitalist world whether it's seen as a weakness, maybe, to be kind in leadership. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I do think. Sorry.
So you go, Ella. You go.
Sorry. Yeah, I think if you think about like movies and film and media as well, you sort of think of the like really successful business person that's like really brutal or like really hardcore, and they're like, wow, they're so powerful and on it, and they don't take any rubbish. And so maybe there's a misconception of like kindness being a walkover, but I don't think that's right. So like at Compassion, because we support children in extreme poverty, if someone at work was, you know, demonstrating poor behavior, you know, it wouldn't be very kind to the children we support if we just ignored it because like, oh, we're just being really nice because we're a nice Christian charity, and we just like, that's not actually kind to the children that we serve. So it's not. So I think maybe there's a misconception of kindness being a walkover, but actually I think it's challenging. You can still challenge a moral behavior and be a strong leader, but still challenge things with gentleness and with patience and being, you know, slow to speak and forgiveness. So I think being approachable and humble, I think, is a big thing in kind leadership, and you're kind of being the one that's responsible for everyone, and you have authority, and people should respect your wisdom. But I still think, probably successful leaders I've seen are the kind, approachable ones that people aren't scared to speak to, because if you're scared of them, you're not sharing wisdom, and you're not sharing what's really happening at lower levels, and that can lead to toxic workplaces and actually you know, poor performance anyway. So maybe it's that misconception of being a walkover, which I don't actually think links to being kind.
Yeah,
I agree, Ella. Yeah.
Go on. Sorry, Maggie, go on, come on.
No, I was just saying, I totally agree. I don't think you can connect the two. You can be kind and a strong leader at the same time. And I personally think you should sprinkle kindness wherever you can. You know,
Absolutely.
we need more. We need more kindness in the world.
Yeah.
And if you get an opportunity to be kind, you should take it and do it.
Absolutely. Ella, it sounds like, you know, your company really live the values that you all put out. So I think that's great. I mean, I've been in a company, and I won't name the company, where they had values in the handbook, and, you know, this is our culture, and it was the complete opposite. And I had a brief discussion with Maggie, not about the cultural fit of this company, but it was in the motor trade, about what happened to me when I had my daughter. And one of the scariest times of my life, and there was not even a card when she was born.
Wow.
So that boss that I had was a lot like this powerful, you know, won't take any rubbish. None of, you know, that's how they were. But then it just closes you up. And, you know, I felt really aggrieved at the lack of, just because, you know, I'd worked there for 4 years and given my all, even though, you know, a lot of the times I didn't get a lot back. And it was a difficult environment when you're, you know, dealing with predominantly very angry customers. So it was difficult. And then in the hardest time of my life, I felt a bit aggrieved. I felt like going, you know, I don't know if my child's going to come out of hospital alive. And why didn't you just check in? But I didn't feel like I could challenge that because of the culture and the type of personality that was at the top of the chain, shall we say, in that respect. I think, yeah, it was really difficult. So the fact that, you know, that there are leaders now that do lead with kindness, and yeah, it's nice. And where I'm at now is like the complete opposite, and it just makes you feel comfortable, and you grow that way. You can kind of find out about yourself, and what you want and what you don't want, and you can voice that, and that helps you progress. I think without that, then people just kind of stay stagnant and worried.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that, Fawn. And that, you know, that, like what you're saying there, I suppose, like, if you think about how you felt, like, that wasn't anything really monetary. It was just a gesture that you.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
I think. Oh, Maggie, sorry.
I was just thinking as you spoke there, Fawn, like, I've got to know you, and you're a great employee. So, like, the flip side of that is that business, you almost switch off then, and they're not going to.
Yes, absolutely.
From you, and you're an asset. So that it's their loss in terms of their behaviour has created that problem then.
And I see that now. At the time, I was just upset. Even when I went, because I went back there after my maternity, because I only got 6 months maternity at home, because the government don't allow for preterm parents to take any additional leave with statutory pay. So doesn't matter how early your baby is. So I was in hospital for 3 months with Safi. So that 3 months out of my 9 months. So I only got 6 months at home.
Right.
And I had to go back to work. I mean, Tom and I were young. We didn't have a lot, so I had to go back to work. And when I went back, they put me, because I couldn't do the duties that I did in my previous role, they put me in the back filing. And I was like, so, you know, when am I going to go back on the service desk? Oh, no, sorry, you've got a child, so you might need to nip out if she's poorly. It's not great for customer service.
Oh, God.
And not even asking you as well, just...
No. No. So I know it's their loss now, but at the time I just couldn't see past just me being really upset. Just going, what? And then you start to think, oh God, have I made the right decision to start a family now? Was I what was I thinking? And then everything, all the turmoil you go through in hospital, and then coming back, and then you're either at home with a baby or you're at work at that time, when you're younger and you're just trying to build for your family. And I just remember thinking, oh, this is just a spiral of just stress and anxiety, and it was just awful. It was awful, but that's the culture there. I'm going back to culture and values, and they are so important in a company.
Yeah.
They are so important. And I've only had. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, funny, but it's not what's written down, is it? It's like it's so.
No,
so
exactly.
What you were saying there, like, and Ella said, like Ella made a good point as well about challenging like poor behaviour,
Absolutely.
and I'm glad you brought that up, because that, like, I see it like that, and sometimes, like, I've like put the armor up at times, and I've tried to like protect myself, but then but then it's not been reading me. So I've learned a lot, and I think, like, if you're empathetic, if you're transparent as a leader, but also, like Ella made a good point, kindness. Well, kindness is actually, kindness is telling someone something that is true to the company values, true to your moral compass. It might not be what they want to hear, but it's the right thing to do. And that might and then the impact of that on, because the company as a whole, it's not just one person, and that and by the way, that's not easy, but and it takes courage. But then I think well, then you're going into leadership, because that's leadership. Management is something I think is different. So that I think going full circle, talking about culture and values, it's about what you do and how you act, not really what's written
demonstrated down from the top. People watch very carefully, and certain things can be normalized. So whether that's being kind and supporting women, or being really brutal and all about money and hardcore business. That's definitely demonstrated from the top. And I think as well, challenging bad behavior is kind. So, like, I think there's a difference between how you talk to powerful people, and so like in Christian theology, Jesus was very, like, he challenged powerful people in a different way to how he spoke to marginalized people, and he was a lot more gentle. So I think you can still challenge power in a different way, and you're being kind by standing up for people who are oppressed, but then you talk to oppressed people, communicate with them, or people who are going through a hard time in a gentle way. And so there's a different approach to people's position, and so both are kind but in different ways, like not turning a blind eye, but also being really gentle and considerate and empathetic to people that need it. Also being, kind of forgiving to the powerful as well, but I think challenging their behavior can also help others.
I would agree with that. I think like, if you look back at what path Richard and I have taken since 2021, like we especially in the recruitment business in Brown & Kill, we just stopped paying commission. We just had enough of this internal leaderboard, top billing, chest beating, like, nonsense that was going on. But by the way, like, I'm not being sanctimonious. I was part of that for a long time, and it was just it was nonsense, really, and it didn't serve people. It served the profit making machine that is recruitment, but it didn't serve customers. So, for example, and I've seen this loads. You've got placing an individual, by the way, an individual, a human being, into a role, and then and with a customer who's also a human being, and then basically that person doesn't work out 3 months later. Oh no, I'll pull them out then. I'll put them in another job because I want to earn my commission. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, well, yeah.
Pete,
I've
when
just
you were
done-
in that situation, what made you stop and think this isn't not right? Because I wouldn't say it's not right, because that's the model that a lot of people use. But what made you think, I want to do this differently? I don't feel comfortable in this anymore.
Question. I think deep. Just for me, it just wasn't. It didn't make me
Didn't
happy.
feel right. Yeah.
No, and I know it's not about me. I know it's not about whether I'm happy or not. But I thought, well, hang on a minute. Like I've left a company where I was for 12 years. I've started my own business, but I'm actually just doing the same damn
Same
thing I
thing.
was doing before. Like, have I not started a business to like? Because if it's just about like people have. By the way, people have different. If you want to scale, if you want to like. Oh, by the way, I've got no issue if you want to scale a recruitment business and you want to sell it, that's great.
Yeah.
That's what you're planning. But for me, it was never really about that. I just wanted to enjoy and give a customer service to my network and I think probably I thought about, well, actually, if this is going to be like, if I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life, then I need to do something that where I can actually like sleep at night and
Be proud.
be proud. Yeah, be proud. Yeah, be proud. Yeah, good word.
Nice.
Be proud. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think going back, but going back, I think at times, I think what I'm probably not proud of it. I think at times I kind of was probably pretending as if I had it all figured out, and I really just didn't. And I think if I was probably more honest with myself and with actually my team, then I do. And I wonder if I wonder if it'd have been different, because I think a lot of the time as leaders I think we pretend that we have got it figured out. I don't know if you guys have experienced that.
Well, I'm not a leader, so I can't speak to that.
I was going to say exactly the same thing, Maggie.
From your side, though, what would you rather see? Would you rather see someone who would you rather open transparency, or would you?
Totally.
Yeah,
that would be my preference. I don't think anybody could say they've got it all figured out, could they? Really, life's a learning curve, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not all the time, so I don't think it's realistic to say that you've got it all figured out. Although I take your point, Pete. I guess as a leader, you might even sometimes feel a sense of responsibility to pretend that you've got it all figured out if you feel that that's the best way to lead. But I think people are leaning more towards authenticity now, aren't they? And wanting to see the real people.
I think that kind of stems from, as well, sort of socials, and everything's online now, and no one knows what's real anymore. Like, you go online and you see something, or you see a photo and you're like, oh, that looks amazing. It's not actually real. Or people put adverts on. It's not real. It's all transactional. They're advertising something because they've got it for free. What's I think, and that's why people are chasing authenticity so much more, because we're living in a world where you have no idea what's real and what's not. And it scares me for my daughter. It's bizarre how they all communicate now. And I mean, I know there's great things about socials and there's great things about all of that, but I just think there's a lot to be said for being authentic. I don't see it a lot online, personally.
We could do a whole nother session on that, to be honest, because
I think so.
Like the it's like I was me and Siobhan, one of our who Fawn, you and Maggie know, we were on the way we were getting in the metro into Newcastle into the office yesterday, and it's like just everyone just on the phone.
Yeah.
Like and it's like, and by the way, I'm like, I'm no better. But then it's like, actually,
like where's the human connection coming in anymore? It's like, and I see it in my, like, I see it my 6-year-old as you know, gets given an iPad at school to like do all his work, you know, and he's had that since he was 5, and I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm like really, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah, I can understand that if you've got young children, how you would feel about that. Thankfully, I didn't have that to deal with when Danny was young, but I guess it's a dilemma. But it's the way of the world,
It's
isn't
the
it?
way they communicate now.
Yeah.
So Tom and I had decided that we weren't going to get Safi a phone until the summer before she goes into year 7, which is this summer. Progressively, friends at school were getting phones, sort of the end of last school year, so last summer. I was like thinking, God, I don't want to do this yet. I don't want to do this yet. But it got to a point where her friends were having video calls on an evening. So they don't play out anymore. They all have a group video chat. That's what the kids do, which is bizarre. And then she kind of went, oh, so-and-so and so-and-so were talking last night. And I was like, where? When? Oh, just on their phones. And I thought, I don't want to, but if I don't soon, she's missing out on this interaction that all of her other friends are having. So you have this sort of internal battle between keeping them safe and going against what you actually want as a parent. Because for me, I mean, she's not that bothered about her phone. She's quite good. She's usually with the horses, mucking out, you know, whatever. But at home, when she gets home and she wants to play a video game, I'm fine with it because she's done her homework and she's done all her chores at the yard. So I'm okay with that. She's been outside, she's moved, all of that. But it's just having that option for her. I thought for her was better with her relationship with her friends, but I had to go against every fibre of my being as a mum because she absolutely categorically wasn't ready to have a phone.
Yeah, that's tough.
But it's interesting because I think as well, like if you look at the you know, if you look at the rise of AI, you know, you it's almost really like, actually, I think AI can support people to actually to do the things that potentially you could do that you had to spend time on probably previously to be more human. I think and have that connection, and that's it. I would much rather like Ellis, for example. Is he going to get more benefit from going outside there, down onto the beach, and spending time doing that, or being on his iPad? And I think with AI, we've got to be very careful. I think we've got to be, you know, I think with social media, with rising technology, with rising AI, we've got to be very careful that people just don't become completely immersed. It's a.
I think with using AI and socials, I think it comes back to sort of like with companies, the values you have in yourself and how you use them.
Yeah.
Your values and your culture, and how, you know, at home what you believe is right and how you want to be seen and how you want to behave, and what you at your core, how you. So, you know, I think all of us could say we're very kind people, and we would navigate socials or AI with kindness and just wanting to maybe learn a bit more understanding. And I think there's the darker side of that may not use that for the same reasons.
Yeah.
So I think it's an education. Sorry, Ella.
Sorry, you go, Maggie.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's like, in our society, there's a rise in like mental health awareness and like understanding the human brain as well, and being more vulnerable, and more men are talking about mental health and vulnerability. But then there's like technology going against it. So it's like, and obviously there's benefits to technology, but there's a rise in mental health awareness, and then there's also a rise of being outside less and being in front of a screen and comparison on social media, and especially when you're younger, not discerning what's realistic or what's real, or and sometimes
Absolutely
stuff on my phone comes up that's really like hateful about a celebrity that I don't actually care about, but because I'm an adult, I can be like, oh no, that's not good for me, and I can feel it affecting me, so I put it away. But when you're younger, it's harder to do that. So it's just, I just thought it'd be interesting, like, you know, mental health awareness is increasing and that's improving, and then there's like technology and social media making it harder, so hopefully both kind of align, maybe. Hopefully.
Where's the balance? Can it be it's a good point, actually. Ella.
Sorry, Maggie, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, it makes me think, and I don't know because I've not got anybody in school, how this works, but there's an education piece required there, surely, in terms of educating children about all the bad stuff that can be. Because as you say, Ella, you, as a rational adult, you can look at that information and determine whether it's good or bad and whether you should listen to it or not. But as a child, you wouldn't necessarily be able to make that distinction, would you?
And Safi wouldn't.
Something in school that would help, you know, that they would introduce something like that to the curriculum that would help children to navigate their way around it. I don't know if
they do touch on it in PSHE. I think that's been in year 5 and 6, but I wouldn't say anything that they've touched on. Safi's come home and gone, oh mummy, did you know, because usually if there's something really educational, she's like, she understands it and she's like, oh, that affects me, you know, she'll come home and go, oh mummy, did you know, or she'd talk to me about it, because it's so ingrained in their lives and it's all they know. Someone telling them how to use it almost become, or what could happen, it's almost like that again, well, that's not going to happen to me. That's not going to happen to me. And they already have that at such a young age.
It's a tough
and it's
one.
just so normal. It's so normal. I think they do need more education around it. But Safi absolutely could not filter something out on social media. I've set up her phone. So it's an iPhone. You can actually set it to under 12 years old, which I didn't know until I got the phone. I was like, brilliant. So you can set it as it's connected to my phone. But still, you have to just keep checking. And I think that there needs to be education, not only to the kids, but to our generation. My generation was probably the last that didn't have mobiles till we were kind of 15. We had MSN Messenger on the computer. That's it. You know, we didn't have any of that. I still had to call my friends on a home phone for them to come meet me. We are probably that very last tail end. So parenting this generation, I know every generation's different, and I know every parent will have had the same feeling. But the way socials have gone, just I feel like we need support as well to know what to do, because I feel like parents at the moment, it's too late. By the time you've realised what's going on, it's because your kid's been having people say nasty things to them or comments on photos. You just don't see it easily enough because it's such a personal thing to them. They have it with them. Not Safi has it. She'd show me her phone any day of the week, but it's in their pockets. You know, you can't see it. I think we also need help on how to parent or navigate this. It's a weird world.
It's interesting because I appreciate we've gone off on a tangent a little bit, but I think it's quite interesting because it's because I've been thinking about this loads lately about you know what. This is again something from probably another session, but like what's intelligence gonna become in the educational system? Because if you think about it, like you know, like remembering facts and that you could basically kids are gonna have a phone, and they're gonna have AI, and it's gonna tell them facts. So then actually, you know, so then you know, maybe this is the future of AI. The benefit of our AI is the fact that actually, because we've got everything there, maybe actually we can focus on more human connection, so we don't have to, you know, some of the stuff that can usually is learned in school. Maybe, you know, that's just there readily available for us, and people can actually focus on communication skills, soft skills, empathy, you know, all these things that really, like, if you think about it, the thing, I mean, correct me, you guys might have a different opinion, but I think generally the things that have served me well is just communicating with people. I think if you can do that, then you're probably going to be okay in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
Communication is key, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I think of friends who are thriving, it's not really who did the best at school, it's actually their decisions in terms of you know, toxic relationships or not, or whether, you know, the jobs that they enjoy, or positive friendships, positive relationships, you know, even with their family or whatever. So yeah, maybe that makes space for learning and development in that area, if AI is going to cover more of the like fact knowledge and things like, I don't know, even like coding, I don't know, fully understand it, but making way for that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I guess the thing is, we don't know, do we? But I listened to a podcast recently that actually alluded to that, Pete, that, you know, AI was going to take care of all of that, and we'd have more time for peopling. We'd just be able to focus on the people things and being there for people.
Yeah,
Like a nice scenario to me.
Yeah, but what we're talking about is, we're talking about kids, but it's the same for other people. Just like people just don't have the kind of bandwidth sometimes. Like you know, you're talking about their phone. Like I get 5 text messages sometimes. Got this thing called school comms. Where my school, when my little lad Ellis's school texts me 5 times a day with like updates on things that I need to remember. I'm like, guys, like, so I've got I've got WhatsApp group, all these, and it's like whoa, like, you know.
Oh Lord, it's a lot.
But the technology has made that happen, hasn't it? Because like when I went to school, that wasn't a thing. So we got through school perfectly well without our parents getting back.
Exactly.
and
but this is it.
Text there now, so it's almost like the text there. Let's use it. So sense checks along the way of, do we actually need to do 5 messages a day to this poor guy?
Poor marketing, poor call to action. If you ask people to do more than one thing, they do nothing. So they should learn from marketing and fundraising. Yeah, if people are overwhelmed, they don't act.
Okay, that's interesting.
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Definitely.
So, guys, final question that I'm going to ask everyone. So, what are you unlearning right now, either about yourself or in the world?
I think because I'm a fundraiser, I think the thing I've sort of learned recently is just like humans act on emotion more than logic. So, I mean, that's something with fundraising, but I think also just working with my colleagues, I think I can see someone sort of kicking off or pushing back a lot in a meeting. And you think, oh, why are you doing that? That doesn't make sense. But it's because we've challenged something that is emotional to them. And so I think it's, for me, just awareness of people are very emotionally led decision makers rather than logical led decision makers. So I think, I'm just trying to be a bit more kind of empathetic and thinking, okay, that wouldn't set me off, but I can remember when I have been triggered by something else. And so it's a bit of a tangent, but the fact of people are emotionally led decision makers comes from fundraising research that we do at work. Because if you show someone an emotional story, they're more likely to give than if you give them loads of facts. And then I've related that to how I work with people as well. Like, oh, you're kicking off, that doesn't make sense. Actually, let's think about what's going on in their brain rather than judging them. So that's something I've been thinking about.
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah, I like that. That really resonates with me,
nice,
actually. That resonates with me, Ella. I actually something really emotionally kind of got me quite. I had a bit of a reaction like that myself last night about something, and I didn't handle it in the right way. But I could understand. I dissected it. I could understand like why it got me emotionally charged. So I think like, yeah, probably I'm quite an impulsive person. So and I have to really kind of challenge that about myself. So I think yeah, I think that's what I need to unlearn, just to just calm down at times. And
All emotional
take
things.
a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maggie?
Well, I guess it's not, well, it is recent because it's a work in progress for me, but I've been unlearning since 2008 that we don't necessarily have time because life can change in a heartbeat. So
Yeah.
I was plodding along with my life thinking I was reasonably young and nothing was going wrong. And then Kev got his diagnosis, and then within 20 months he died. And, you know, like, so that was a real life lesson to me, that like, don't get stressed about stuff that's fixable. Just go fix it. Just, you know, don't get your life dragged down with stuff unnecessarily. Try and just really embrace every day and live your best life. I know that's a very overused saying, but in terms of having that inner peace and that calmness. And I mean, I can tell you a very quick story around that demonstrates that completely. But when Kev was first diagnosed, he was just about to start building a project he'd been working on in the planning. And so he had to go to the client and say, okay, I've got a terminal cancer diagnosis. I don't know what you want to do. Do you want me to still build this? I don't know how long I've got. They've given me a rough time scale, 6 to 18 months. And the client said, yes, I do still want you to build it because we've been working in the planning and you know it. So I want you to build it, but we need a contingency in case you die before it's built. So Kev employed somebody to take over in the event that he died and the project wasn't built, and this guy would take it over. A few months into the project, we went on holiday, and when we came back, we found out that this guy who Kev had employed to take over had been out walking his dog, collapsed and died of a heart attack. So we were all focusing on Kevin dying because we've got a terminal diagnosis, and this guy was going to take over. So I think that message.
Oh my God.
We're all terminal, aren't we? We just, some of us know.
We just don't know where, yeah.
That we know when it's going to happen, but none of us really know. And I think that's a learning that I got. Like, I've learned to learn that we haven't got indefinite amounts of time. So don't put things off and do things that you want to do. Be kind and just try and live a nice life.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's where authenticity comes in, isn't it, Maggie? Like, why would you try and pretend to be something you're not when, you know? Do you think that's changed how you approach your working life as well?
Yeah, I think it's definitely changed how I approach things in life, because a little bit like you said, Pete, if you can, like, I think we've all got chatterboxes, we all get run away with emotions, we've all got those messages going on in our head and the stresses and everything. One thing that I've learned to be able to do is to recognize when my chatterbox is running away with me and actually give myself a reality check and think about it and think, right, okay, this is the problem. What are your options? And, you know, what can you do about it? And go and do something. Don't sit there stewing then. Go and make a decision that changes this if it's not good for you. So, and I think that's, for me, I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, that's got to be the way that I live my life, because I'm hoping I'm going to live a long life. I'm aiming for past 100, but, you know, we don't know, do we? And it's precious. And we've just all got this amount of time to do what we want to do with, and to have good relationships and enjoy the people around us, enjoy our work and all that sort of stuff. So it's really important to me. That's how I look at it now. Definitely, because I've witnessed somebody knowing that they're dying. There's nothing you can do about it. We fought really hard to find a way to extend Kev's life as long as possible. You know, we went abroad for treatment that wasn't available in the UK. We got drugs that weren't available on the NHS. We'd really tried hard to extend his life. But I saw how things that previously mattered didn't matter in that scenario, and how much really does matter.
Yeah.
And so it was, you know, that was a gift, I guess, Kev gave me through his illness.
I was just going to say that. That's a great point. Yeah, because you probably wouldn't have. You know, I've not been in that situation, Maggie, but I can imagine that. Yeah, It was a gift, really, because you'd probably just would have carried on thinking in a certain way, and then just that, just that moment in life just flip.
And it's we all get caught up in life, don't we? I'm not suggesting that I live this perfect normal life, but I just can recognize where I need to put my stress, I guess, and what I need to walk away from. And I always think of it in a real black and white thing. And I remember when the company that I loved, Cluxton's, went under, and I'd worked there for years, and it was like a bereavement, because it went under really, really quickly, and everybody was devastated, and they lost their jobs and everything. And I felt that devastation as well, because I loved that company and I loved working there. But then I thought to myself, okay, if it was, and I've had this conversation with my son as well, who also worked there, like, okay, if we had envelopes on the table and one of them had losing the job you love, you've got a huge attachment emotionally to this company because it's a great company, or a terminal cancer diagnosis, you're going to take losing the job you love, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Job, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And, I think I use that quite a lot in my mindset now, to think, okay, I'd rather have this than a terminal cancer diagnosis. Which sounds a bit brutal, but that is how I think.
Well, that's the real choices that people are facing.
It's a reality, it's a reality. Yeah.
Bonnie?
For a retirement that they never have. So I feel like life's about relationships.
Absolutely.
Focus on your relationships, whether that's family, friends, or whatever. But
absolutely, Ella. Definitely.
Bon?
That's a hard question. I haven't had time to think about that.
Think about it. Yeah.
No, because I wasn't meant to be talking. And here I am blabbing away.
It's been great.
I think I'm unlearning to second guess myself. I think I've always had a bit of an issue with confidence and speaking my mind, and in a respectful way. But I've always just shied away from giving my opinion. And my husband always used to, not make him angry, but just, why aren't you just saying what you think? You've got valid points. I just could never get it out, and I just kind of walk away and just not say anything. And I think that I'm just unlearning that. So now I'm putting a bit of more faith in myself that I'm not going to sound stupid. I do have good ideas, or I can do this. It might be out of my comfort, but I can do it. And if I can't do it right now, I'll learn how to do it. So just giving myself that kick up the backside, really, and just kind of telling myself that I can rather than I can't. That makes sense?
Totally.
I think that does make sense. I think it depends. You sometimes become a product of the environment. So you mentioned about the previous.
That's
jobs,
absolutely it. I think that 100%. I think half of it is the environment I was in, and I think half of it's just growing up and going, do you know what? Just you've got to do it now. When you're gonna, just do it, and you're not going to make the fool out of yourself that you think you are.
Yeah, it sounds a bit cheesy, but to be fair, like the space between, that's where the magic happens, isn't it? Really, because actually you when you're in that space where you really don't have a clue what's going on, and you feel like you're out of your comfort zone, then that's where you really start to learn stuff about yourself, and
100%.
It doesn't matter if you mess up, but I think human beings. I believe this. I believe human beings. Human beings. It's our nature. We want to progress. But when I progress, I'm not talking about progression. Might mean anything to anyone. So some might want to progress in an educational environment, a work environment, a health environment, whatever it is, it might be everything. But it's human nature to want to progress. But you don't progress by not, like it's if you think about, I couldn't run I couldn't run a marathon tomorrow, but do you know what? I have to start somewhere, and do you know what? It'd be really painful because I'd have to train, and it'd be really painful. I wouldn't want to do it. It'd be uncomfortable, but I could
Do it.
if I wanted to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same
So
scenario,
true.
really.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for your time.
You've been listening to The Space Between with Pete Walker, where we hold honest conversations at the edge of change. If this episode hit home, follow the show on Spotify, Apple or YouTube, or connect with us on LinkedIn to keep the conversation going. If something landed today, please share it. There's no hype here, just truth, passed on. Until next time, thanks for listening.